Okay. All right. It's great to be here with Steve Seidel, a great TED speaker and connection expert that I discovered on Substack, the platform of champions.
Yes.
So quite fun. Thank you so much for joining, Steve. Love your background.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on board. We share a similar sentiment around Substack. I remember we have this men's group and we're like, what should we do with it? And we are like, dude, we should get on Substack. And, then we started finding, you look at Scott Galloway, he took all of his business entities and brought them over on Substack and he's crushing it. And so at the end of the day, you can be an owner or an operator. Why not get on Substack and own that audience?
You know what? Absolutely. Why not take your audience and put it somewhere where you can send out regular? I mean, it's a great email platform. So for those out there, I was really interested in Steve's work with grief recovery. It's a topic where, I mean, understandably, there's a lot of heavy emotion, and especially for men, there's often not a venue for that, an outlet to put out there. And as a therapist, I'm always looking for ways to help men in the mental health men's crisis that we're currently in. So obviously, Steve's work really spoke to me. And his TED Talk, The Hidden Power of Grief, give it a watch. It's only 12 minutes and it packs quite a bit of actionable advice into that runtime. So, Steve, I would love to start by just asking you to explain how that process happened of you taking that grief and transforming it into something that propelled you forward.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeremy. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for tuning in and for your work, man. It's all about, honoring the story, the lives we lived, what we go
Yes.
through, we grow through. And so for me, I grew up with product of divorced parents. So I was a people pleaser. And as I started to grow older, I was an engineer. I call myself a connection engineer. I was a trained engineer, but then I went into entertainment and then now marketing and PR and really positioning your story. But this story to me is the connective tissue that really allows us to flourish. And too often we feel like our story isn't good enough. Nobody cares. And for me, I moved my agency from California during the pandemic. So I'm a virtual agency and I had no local friends. It was a pandemic. I had virtual employees. I had a 1-month-old baby. And then my mom called me and told me she was sick. And I mean, I don't know. I'm sure some of your listeners or maybe you yourself have gotten the call. We're all going to lose something, whether it's your dog,
Hmm.
your mom, your job, but like hearing the words, my mom told me they found something and I just knew it wasn't good. And so when somebody tells you they have previously my stepfather, in 2000, my mom said, hey, Tom's sick. My stepfather's name was Tom. I was like, oh, what does he have? Oh, he has cancer. So when you hear somebody has cancer, dude, it is tough. And so for me, I was in a moment where I didn't really have anywhere to turn. It was extremely challenging. And I started a men's group because I just had no safe space to talk to. My wife was overburdened. My
Yeah.
friends were off doing their own thing. But I thought to myself, look, what can I do here to really bring people together? And so I thought, hey, let me think about my closest friends, the people who influence us the most. Who's an entrepreneur? Because that's what I am. Who has flexible time? Who's a father? Because that's what I am, that understands the challenges. And who's somebody who's in a relationship and is just an overall good person. And so we created this group. It was called Jen's Journey. And that allowed me to speak a little bit more about the challenges that I was going through. And then there was an opportunity to do a TEDx talk. And I felt, look, we're really trying to help men dig deep to understand that vulnerability is invincibility. And only when we share our story do we allow ourselves to step into our power. And so I said, look, this is a great opportunity to share it with the world. So that's where the TEDx came out of.
That's beautiful. So you describe grief as a teacher and not something to get over. In the trauma world, we've largely abandoned this idea that you detach from someone who's passed away. So you talk about a cardinal at your window
Yeah.
and love never ends, that
Yeah.
those aren't you failing to move on. And it's actually what researchers call continuing bonds. So that ongoing relationship with someone who meant something to you, just in a new form. Did it ever feel like you were supposed to let go, like the world was telling you to let go of your mom? And did you have to give yourself permission not to and have this new relationship with grief?
I think in life, as we grow older, I've had a rebirth, a reconnaissance. I'm in my third chapter. And so as we grow older, we find a deeper sense of purpose and we do let go, right? For so long, we hold on to so many attachments, whether it's money, it's relationships. And when you get to a place where you're willing to let go and like take your fists and undo them and you can put your hand over your heart instead of being stuck in your head, when we
Yeah.
truly let go, I didn't feel as if I needed to let my mom go. It's tough. I was actually there in the room. It
Mhm.
was one of the most, I was just listening on the radio today where somebody said, what was the most challenging moment of your life? And for me, I think it was that moment because I was there when she started to have trouble breathing.
Mm,
And it was a huge challenge because I was a caretaker and she was
yeah.
going back and forth, and she really wanted to be in Philadelphia where we grew up, but I was in Kentucky and she didn't quite feel
Mhm.
like she was home. So she would go back and forth and back and forth. And we
Yeah.
finally, I spoke into a company and I said, look, we need to bring her in hospice and she needs to be in Philly so she can go home. And in that moment, she sparked up and she got really excited. The ambulance company, I'm not going to give you their name. They said, "Look, we can't do that because if she's in state lines and something happens, we're just going to have to go all the way through." I said, "That's fine. I will ride in the back with her and we will go all the way there because I want to
Yeah.
take her home." And then later that day, that was when she had trouble breathing, and to be with her in those final moments and to stay with her, and I was FaceTiming my entire family because I wanted everybody to be there. I was chosen to be there. And in hindsight, it feels like, oh, why was I there? But me and her had such a common bond, or like a bond that's indescribable. So I was chosen to be there and playing music, asking her to go to the light, asking her to just move on to the next phase, right? We're all, going to the next phase, not necessarily disappearing, but there's a quote from Rumi, which I can share, but letting her
Mhm.
go to that next phase for me, I get in the car and I go to drive home, and it was just such a surreal feeling. Her favorite song was Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Mhm.
And so I'm in the room and I said, F this, whatever. I got to play this song. And so I pull it in it was a struggle because I had these phones and batteries are dying and I'm like messing with
Mhm.
technology. But then at the same time, I need to be present with her. But I said, I need to play this song. So we played Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I had my mom's phone and my own phone. So my sister was there and I'm there. And we played Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And then one final tear just came right down my mom's face as that song
Right.
came on. And that was just a message, you know, to me, that she was there. We're going to be there forever. I have her
Mhm.
ashes. I wear them around my neck every single day. She loves Hawaii. So everywhere I go, I spread her ashes and I bring her with me.
I mean, that's so beautiful, and we've really moved away from this idea of just stages of grief, which were never empirically validated as sequential, by the way, for people out there who feel like you're supposed to just do it one and done, to a dual process model where healthy grieving can oscillate between loss oriented and restoration oriented coping. So basically this idea that you can feel the pain, there's this, you understand the loss, but then you really linger on what the person provided to your life and how to honor them. So that really hit me with your talk. I mean, continuing bonds, that's the name for things like the cardinal and the family mantra that you and your daughter beautifully have started saying of like love never ends, or when you started saying it when the grief episode really started. So I would love to hear more of these almost glimmers, so that there's the opposite of a trigger that some therapists will talk about, because a trigger, we all know, trigger warning, this, that trigger, but a glimmer, and I need to look up who to give credit to for that, is this idea of something that comes up that sparks a positive memory, something that's the opposite of triggering you into a negative emotional state. So I wanted to hear more about those, because I know your tattoos have special relevance and some other things you bring that remind you of who's important to you.
Yeah, I think one of the things for us as individuals, and I just did so I started the Gents Journey. We just did the Gents Weekly. I did the little mini podcast plus yesterday. I said, show up on Sunday. It's
Awesome.
about showing up, right? And so I think Maya Angelou might have said, it's not what you do for people, it's how you made them feel that they're going to remember the most. And so spending those time together, for me, it's about being present. And too often we look for the presents, like I talked about, these gifts. And granted, we
Mhm.
may have our love languages, but when we can bring ourselves into the now and really be aware of what's surrounding us and not swallow ourselves in the past and all these pattern behaviors and things that might have happened and regrets. And
Yeah.
yes, we all do it. Or I do it a lot too. I struggle with, neurodiversity, where I'm going to the future and worrying,
Mhm.
having issues. Like, is this going to work out? And so I have to remind myself to stay in the present moment, and the past has served itself perfectly. I have a mentor. I'm in a group. It's run by Pat Croce. He's the former owner of the Sixers. He was like a big motivational speaker, but now he's had this rebirth about, enlightenment and living in the moment and having a 6-second sacred pause. These are all his little He calls them sadhanas, which are ways that you can implement them in your life. But he has a 6-second sacred pause so that we can pause. And when we pause, we come back to the present moment. And so for me, when I'm in the moment, only then do I really notice these things that are around us, because otherwise I'm stuck in the narrative that's pinging around in my head,
Yes.
or the patterns that are around us. So like when my mom, she passed away, and I had to call all of her friends the next morning. And I could just go on for years on all the things that have
Mhm.
happened. But for me, they're constant reminders. But so I pick up the phone and I start calling her best friends. And it was the hardest thing in the world to do. And I'm crying and I'm getting ready to tell, boom, something hit my window. And it was a bird, it was a cardinal. And then I was like, oh my goodness. It was just, for me, it was a sign of like, hey, come out of it. I'm here. I'm there with you. And then I talk later in my TEDx talk how where I'm sitting now is my office. There's a
Yeah.
little tree, and the cardinal would come every single day, come and sit down. And so I think when we are aware of what we're going through and knowing that the greatest times that we have in our lives are usually unfolding before us, and if we could stay in those present moment, then we can capture these things. I went back to visit my best friend, and one of the songs that my mom and my sister, it's, what is it? The Dancing Queen. It's one of the
Mhm.
songs that we played at the wedding. And so these are the moments where you could be like, oh man, I miss my mom so much. But instead, it's a moment where I need to stay in the moment and be like, okay, we're here. It's good to see you. I miss you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for guiding me and putting me in a place in this world where I can lead and continue your legacy. And that's all
Yes.
I really want to do. I was raised by a lot of really powerful women.
Mhm.
And so for me to value female empowerment, the future's female, I'm a girl dad, but also be a businessman, a leader, and somebody who works in other organizations where we can empower each other and know that we are all here together. We are all one. These are just all ways that are constant reminders to stay focused, stay present, and honor the past by leading forward with conviction.
Beautifully said. So many different follow-up questions I could ask. I mean, just topically, since we went there and future's female and also being you and me both being male, what you think men need to do so that they can have a future as well with what we know about the men's, we'll say for YouTube, unaliving rates and men being really aimless now. I'm sure you've noticed that.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about in our men's group. We have a bunch of pillars that we use. I think at the end of the day, it's all about balance, and it's so how can we balance ourselves? And so we have 7 pillars in
Mhm.
our Gents Journey men's group. So we have friendship, that connection. We need to have somebody to rely upon. If you talk about, or you look at movies, Disney movies, there's always a friend that comes in, or the inanimate object, or
Mhm.
somebody where the inciting incident, the friend comes along, they get to the end of the movie. This is I'm quoting Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. The all
Of
is
course.
lost moment, like they're not going to get it, but then the hero is like, no, I do have this. I am worthy, and I can push forward. So friendship, there's family, really understanding. At the end of the day, on the deathbed, a lot of people who talk about their regrets, they just wish that they spent more time with their family. So making sure that we're present around our family and we're not distracted and we're enjoying these moments that are unfolding before our eyes are huge. Fun.
Mhm.
We all need to have a sense of play. So we talk a lot about if it's fun, it gets done. That's something that I lost when, going through my mom, it was just like, oh, so much. And so with my mentor, Pat Croce, and in the group that I'm in there, it's like I was coming, I was moving for happiness. I was trying to find things that were making me happy. And he's like, no, you need to come from happiness. Find that sense of play and think back to when you were younger, or, you were emerging. What were things that really lit you up? Was it tennis? Was it writing? Was it going to the movies? Surround yourself with these things that light you up so that you become, enlightened. The fourth one is focus, making sure that we have clarity and focus, and we focus on what we really want out of life. Too often we allow the push notifications, the people that we're working with, friends, other people with outside influences dictate where we're going. So remain focused. And when we write it down, then it can become clearer. Jim Carrey talks about it all the time. I had a post recently in 2010. I wrote down I wanted to have a certain car. I wanted to sell a TV show. I wanted to sell a podcast. This past year, I just finally sold a TV show. It took me, 15, 20 years. But if you write it down, it holds you accountable, and the universe, God, whomever you believe in, will conspire for you. Also, fitness. If you're not working out and you don't feel confident about yourself, what kind of life are you going to live? I work out for myself and my children because I want to be around. I'm an older parent. I want to be around when they're older and they have children. But it also gives me
Mhm.
confidence. You show up, you've done a workout, the endorphins are flowing. And then we have two more: freedom, making sure that you're free to choose what you want. But lastly is faith, having that higher power that we believe in. Going back to grief, when somebody may pass on, they may pass on, but that just means that they're in a different stage. The energy has shifted. Their soul is in another capacity, but it doesn't mean that they have left us. So there's a quote from Rumi: goodbyes are for those who love with their eyes, because for those who love with their heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation. They live within us. So I think that was a long-winded answer, but for men who are struggling, it's finding a sense of balance, not putting too many eggs in one basket, but also loving yourself and putting value in yourself. That's something that I struggled with. I worked with a therapist. There was an amazing book. It was called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yes,
I forget
I
who
know
wrote
that
it.
book.
But it was all about me growing up and being a people pleaser, being surrounded by other teachers and moms and female subjects, where it gave a lot of my power over to them, where at some point I had to take it was up to me to take accountability, to set solid boundaries, and to love myself first. Because if I'm not loving myself first, I'm doing a disservice. I'm not showing up as my authentic self.
Spectacular. Did you say you saw the therapist who wrote that book? Like you were?
No, I went to a therapist after my mom died. I tried a bunch of different things, and I was like, hey, let me go check out a therapist. I've had a group, my men's group. I tried a bunch of things, right? I did breath work, which was amazing. When I did breath work, I had these visions of my mom and my dad and my stepfather, because they've all passed away. My dad passed away 6 years ago. My mom passed away 3 years ago. My stepdad passed away about 20 years ago. But I had this vision of all of them holding hands and hugging each other and just loving each other as a unit. And it was just, I've recorded it. I have not gone back to listen to it yet.
Wow.
And at some point I will. But the breath work, there's just a multitude of things that you can do. And I tried them all.
I hear you. Tell us a little bit about those cool tattoos you have and your relationship with Philly with the birds.
So I have a tattoo of the Philadelphia Eagles on my arm.
Yeah.
And go Birds, first of all. And it's funny, like when you love something and you're open to the possibilities and you truly believe things can happen, they will happen. And so I'm just going to give you two little side vignettes. Growing up, my favorite show was Pee-wee, Big Top Pee-wee, Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, man. Paul Rubens. All right, here we go.
Paul Rubens. And then Punky Brewster. I used to love Punky Brewster with Soleil Moon Frye. So throughout my career, I was, like I said, I was an engineer, and then I became an entertainer. I went to LA. I ended up meeting Soleil Moon Frye. She ended up working with me and hiring me. I was a videographer for like a year and a half, and I shot like a documentary. And to me, it's these things that happen when we're younger that begin to shape who we are and when we truly believe. And I knew that somehow it was going to work out. And then I saw Paul Rubens at an event, and I was like, hey, I was a little interview show. I said, can I interview you? And then I became friends with Paul Rubens. And then every year he would send me a Christmas card. He would write me a text message. If you've seen the documentary, he was an extremely giving individual. But he had a challenge because he was like trying to navigate Hollywood and being in the closet and all of those things. And so, but the reason I say that is because growing up, I was watching the Eagles, and I've had this euphoric spiritual relationship around the Philadelphia Eagles. I grew up watching it with my stepfather. My favorite player was Fred Barnett. He was number 86 on the Philadelphia Eagles. And I mentioned it earlier. My stepfather, I went home for my sister's wedding just after 9/11, and my mom said, Tom is sick. I said, oh, what's going on? He has cancer. He died 6 weeks later. It was like that. And so I preach to anybody who's here, if you have your loved ones, your family, get over the beef, value who they are, reach out to them, and just get to a point where you can honor who they are, their heart and soul. Get out of our head, get into your heart. Think with your heart in that scenario. So anyway, he dies. I'm working at Motorola as an engineer, and I have a dream that my mom calls me frantically, telling me he dies. And that actually happened. The exact dream that I had happens. My mom's calling. She's frantic. I'm at my work. She tells me Tom's died. Obviously, I know he's sick, so it's probably going to happen. But how I dreamt it happen. So I go to get on the airplane, and I'm going to the funeral. And I get up, and I'm extremely dejected. And this is going back to the signs that we talked about, letting go and being serendipitous and these glimmers. I get on the airplane. I go to sit down, and I kind of look up, and I see somebody in the back row. And I was like, man, that person looks familiar. And I look again, I squint my eyes. Lo and behold, on the back row of the plane on the way to Philadelphia was Fred Barnett, my favorite Eagles player.
Wow.
So to me, I'm going to my stepfather. He was the guy who first showed me the Eagles. I used to watch it every Sunday. We bonded, we connected. Go back to this connection. And that's what it's really all about. And so I went up and I told him the story, and he said, "Oh man, that's really great." Flash forward 2014, I worked for a startup. I met a gal by the name of Jen Kavanaugh, and she's like, "Hey, I've been working for NBC. I have a job opportunity to work for the Eagles. And I know you're a huge super fan. If you embody who you are and you honor your authentic self, these opportunities will show up in your life. You just need to be aware and look out for them." She gets the job for the Eagles. My real father, I start to really build a bond with him. We watch the Eagles all the time. He gets sick. So
Mm.
then Jen Kavanaugh wrote a video. She sent a video from the Philadelphia Eagles announcer. His name is Merrill Reese, and my father has never been so happy in his entire life. He was sitting in the hospital, and he wrote a video back as well. I was the last person to see my father before he died, and I have two half brothers. I said, "Hey, look, we're going to take care of my brothers. I love you." Next morning, he passed. We were going to have a special day where we honored my dad, and we were going to take him to the Eagles Stadium, and he was not able to attend. They were going to roll out the green carpet. The morning we woke up, we're getting ready to go to the Eagles game, and how you take a shower and the or the mirror gets foggy? So the,
Yes.
the mirror is all foggy. We're getting ready to go, and lo and behold, inside the mirror is a little eagle imprint that looks exactly like the Philadelphia Eagle that's on my arm here. So for me, again, another sign, another glimmer.
Wow.
And then I'll give you one other one. Before we buried my father, he was a huge beer. He collected beer cans. He started the Eastern Coast Brewery and Association back in '73. So he collected tons of beer cans, beer mugs. He was from Utica, New York. So there's these mugs that are called Schultz and Dooley, and there are these special mugs that come out every year. And he passed away, and we had him cremated, and we said, "Hey, I think we should put him in a beer stein. We should bury him in a beer mug because he collected these things." Mind you, my last name also means beer stein. So Seidel means beer mug in German. So we're like, we're going to put him in a beer stein. Which one should we put him in? We're like, he has this huge opening. It's basically like a display case with thousands and thousands of mugs. And we go and we leave and we come home to his house, which is a 350-year-old house. There's been some hauntings and some really crazy experiences in there. But
Wow.
the door was open when we came home. Nobody else was in the house, and there was a light shining on the Schultz and Dooley 50th year anniversary mug. And we were like, well, I guess he wants us to put him in that mug. So we buried him in the
Interesting.
50th anniversary Schultz and Dooley. But I got a couple tattoos to remind me of my dad and my stepfather, and I'm getting
Yeah.
another one to remind me of my mom. And I think these are just moments. Every time I look at it, it's like, okay, cool, they're with me. Thank you for what you've taught me. I'm going to carry it forward and build a legacy.
I think anyone can benefit from that. And I also think we can say some of that is positive masculinity and hero's journey. And when I hear about your men's group, it's it's fascinating to hear that there's a shared task that in that Monday group that you started. So you decided, okay, I want to take my emotional experience into a group with other men, not just rely on my spouse, which is a big thing because I think too many men think, okay, socialization ends when I get married, and then my wife is my emotional everything. And it's better to do that with her. And it's wrong to have friends. And I think that's really toxic and it burns you out. And it's actually not healthy for her. So I love that you just decided, hey, I'm going to start something. And with a men's group, there's a shared task of moving through things together as something that's positive masculinity and not just spinning your wheels. So,
Yeah, thank you. That's one thing that we distinctly say in this group is like we need to have
yeah,
sounding boards and other people, and there's a big movement in TikTok. I think it was called like I love you, bro. And people were calling their friends and be like, "Hey, I love you,
yeah,
bro." And like being able to say I love you or I'm grateful for you and realize that, our time here on this earth is fleeting. And in that group that we started, I started it, but then eventually it felt I didn't want it to be my group. And so there was other members and they were like, I mentioned, "Hey, why don't you manage this group this week? And then why don't you manage this week?" And we started to pass the
mhm,
mic a little bit because we all wanted to, it wasn't me. It was just us coming together. And so then we started to ask questions and somebody said, "Hey, let's ask a question each week." And we all answer it. So when we started that, one of the guys in the group, his name is Dean Bakari. And he says, "What does masculinity mean to you?" When,
mhm.
when he started with the questions, it really started to take shape and take fire because we all have our own opinions and beliefs, and especially masculinity. now versus back in the day, it's totally different from our fathers. And
Right.
for us, our fathers were as rough as can be, very limited show of emotion. My father was a first sergeant in the army. So,
Okay.
I mean, he taught, hey, sit down. And he would, every time he talked, it was like, whoa. But he was the
Yeah.
softest guy in the world. You just had to find a way to get in there. And for him, it was, he would give me baseball cards and we would connect over sports. But when we dug deeper into these individual questions each week and like, when's the time something bad turned out to be good, we created this thing. It's called the Journey Deck.
Yes. The gent's journey. Yes.
Yeah. So I want you to pick a question because when we go back to our childhood, I always wanted to be a magician. I'm still trying to learn tricks, but now that I have our own Gents Journey Deck, it's like a deck of cards, but the magic is in your answer. So I'd love for you to answer one of these questions. Are you down?
Okay. Yeah.
Tell me when to stop.
Stop now. Pick one. I'm open. We'll see where it goes.
Okay. So this one's an interesting one. What's one question you've always wanted the answer to? And if that's a little too vague, the other one is, what's one piece of advice you keep in your back pocket and why?
Man, I'll answer both those. So let me go with the second one first. What's one piece of advice to keep in my back pocket? Well, as a therapist, I mean, I have an unfair advantage because I have to keep a few. I have big pockets.
Yeah, dude, you got big pockets.
I would say that healing. So my one of my mantras that I tell clients is trauma was never your fault, but healing is always your choice and responsibility. So it there's it's no it, you have to be the one. It's unfair to sometimes pick up and move forward when something was done, and bitterness only is like inward turning thorns. I think that's a Buddhist phrase as well. It's like something or no, that's like drinking poison and hoping the other person unalives. That's what anger is. And so there's healthy anger, but bitterness really slows you down, not the person who hurt you. So okay, that's all heady, right? I'm getting into that mode, but going with something I wish I had the answer to, man, I think so. As a Christian, I think having a clean answer for like why bad things happen to good people, I think having a good way to express that, I think scripture does talk about that, but that would be a good thing. But also really what the cure would be for something like depression, right? Like I know exercise is good, but things like that, like how to be the best healer, like just distill that down to the answer.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's a multitude of things. And
Mm-hmm.
like in Dean, one of the guys in my men's group, he has this thing. He's like a motivational speaker and he does
Mm,
lots of really cool things. He has this thing that he calls about his morning pies. And he says, if you show up in the morning, you do something physical. You start with something intellectual, you start with something emotional, and then you hit the spiritual element. So when
mhm.
you take a slice or eat it, and when you can tap those things, I feel like that will allow you to dig a little bit deeper. And because oftentimes we get stuck in our heads, right, with this narrative or these thoughts or these patterns. Thoughts becomes feelings, feelings becomes emotion. All the whole trigger down the way there. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I would love to know like how to heal as well. And I think for me, it was like journaling has also been a really big part. That's one thing we do in our group is we encourage everybody to journal because we all have different ways of dealing things. Talk therapy, ERP. I did some what was it called? It's where you put your eyes back and forth and you
EMDR, right? Or is it
yeah,
brain
yeah.
spot?
Yeah, I did some of that during when I was, trying to go through some things, and that was really cool because I'm a really visual person, and to really tap into some of those things, and then sort of rewrite the narrative, especially with past emotions. Right? You have a way that you envision them, or you feel a victim, or you feel like you weren't. There's the Cartman drama triangle where you're the victim,
Yeah.
and flipping that on its head. I forget the name of the other one, but putting it in a position where you take accountability and then rise through it.
Yeah, I don't know that model. I know the drama triangle for sure. And I also know transactional analysis where you've got like the child part, you have the parent part and the healthy adult part, right? And we want to gravitate toward that healthy adult expression rather than being overly parental toward others or being in a childlike victim role. So very well
Yeah,
said. I mean, you've got
yeah.
your entertainment idols too. You've got Pee Wee and Punky, the two P's. That's really fun. That I wanted to
Yeah,
circle
I
back.
mean,
That's
it's
pretty
like
awesome.
it's really crazy. And so to think, so when I was younger, I used to tell everyone that I wanted to be like OJ Simpson. And
Well,
dude,
that probably went away.
And so that had to change. So I had to change it to like Michael Strahan because I loved, entertainment. I loved reporters, broadcasting. I love athletes, hosting. I would sit in my room and I would talk on my little recorder and pretend I would do little voices and whatnot. And like, I think the more that you can explore that sense of things and also restore that sense of childhood, and there's the
Yes.
exercise where you go back and you talk to your 14-year-old self or that vulnerable child and you tell them it's going to be okay. You did a good job, and you fill that void in your heart. And that's something that I've often struggled with. I didn't have a lot of friends and I was a loner and I didn't grow until I was in college. So I was 5'3". So part of me is constantly trying to tell my children, like, look, I'm proud of you. You're great. You're strong. You're intelligent, and give them the tools
Mhm.
so that they have the vocabulary and also have that sense of self-confidence, self-esteem. And I think if you could start younger and, be present with them, even better.
Yeah, a lot of parents get super concerned, overly so, like if they went through trauma growing up, that somehow they're gonna inflict that on their kids if they have an off day or sneeze the wrong way or yell once, and I always tell them, when kids know you're there and that you care at their core, right? They know that nothing's gonna shake them. I mean, true, you need to protect them from bad actors on the outside, sure,
Yeah.
but if something, God forbid, happens, when your kids know you're in their corner and you'll defend them, that buffers like a probiotic, like a force field from trauma and from, especially from complex PTSD, which is just that form of trauma that really impacts identity and causes you to have this learned helplessness view of yourself. So that's a great lesson for anybody out there concerned in the parent world, that being there, being mindful, being, bearing witness to your children and encouraging them is just the way to go, in a healthy way, and doesn't make them narcissistic. It just, okay, you have greatness in you. You're gonna have to work for it and do things, but you're good stuff. You're made of good stuff.
Yeah. One thing that for me, my growing up, maybe the same with you, but our fathers
Mhm.
were different. They were cut from a different cloth. And so he was a little bit more tougher, if you will, but he showed up at my baseball games. And so to know that he
Yeah.
was at the baseball games, or, you know, sometimes he didn't come here and there, on weekends because my parents were divorced. But that's where, when I graduated college, he said, "Hey, man, I'm proud of you." He told my mom, he was like, "Thank you for all that you've done, helping get our child through college and really being there." And that was a really special moment for me. And I think every guy just wants to hear from their father, "Hey, look, you're proud of them." And so the more that we can tell our children that we're proud of them, even better. Because if I tell my children every day, I'm proud of you, I love you, I'll always love you, give them that reassurance so that they have that safety net that's important for them to hear.
Yes, the safety net. That's a great way to put it as well. So, to put you on the spot a little, and you can always push back. I love your work with grief. I think you've done some amazing work with that for someone who experienced it and brought out lessons for others, right? Have you turned your attention to maybe even using your model with trauma, or, and we'll get to the 3 steps of your model, but, or what you see in the world of trauma now? Because it's a really used term, right? Sometimes it's accurate. Sometimes I think it's
With the
stretched a
term
little bit.
trauma,
Yeah.
yeah, trauma is like branding, bro. Like branding, it's the same thing. And so for me, what I talk a lot about is identity. And
Say more. Yes.
so to me, it's about identity. Who do you identify with? And I know there's different thoughts and beliefs, but like at the end of the day, you could be a father, you could be a marketer, you could be a media, and you could be any number of things. But I think at the end of the day, we really want to define our identity and our character and who we really are. So, like, what are people going to say when you leave the room? That's what your
Hmm.
character is. That's what your identity is. Like when I go to a convention or I talk to my friends, and I ask them all the time, and they were like, "Dude, you're doing another exercise." I'm like, What are the words that come to mind when you think about me? What do I bring when I come into the room? Because I'm curious how I'm perceived, how I show up, and I know a lot of this people pleaser in me is still kind of. I call myself a recovering people pleaser. That's where
Great term.
when working with Pat, my mentor, we have a name for the voice in our head. We name the voice in our head. My name for the voice in the head is people pleasing Peter.
Hmm.
And so when I know he's coming up and I have to and I want to apologize or say I can't make it because of such and such, I just have to say, look, that doesn't work for me. And I have to honor that and know that they may be upset, but their validation or whatever, at the end of the day, this doesn't matter. And so I think with trauma, growing up, I had earplugs and I have a bunch of ear things, and I had 7 different surgeries for ear tubes. And so I recently went swimming with my daughter, and she was like, "Dad, I want you to go under." And I'm like, "All right, I'm going to go under." And I have to wear earplugs and I have to wear a swim cap every time I do that because I just don't want to get water in my ears and I have tons of complications. So
Totally
every
get
time I
that,
do
dude.
that, it's just like, okay, here we go. A, I get nervous about going underneath, but then B, there's a people pleasing component. Like these people, I'm at the country club. This was literally happened 3 days ago. I had to join for us to go swimming. And this goes back to the trauma aspect. And I don't like the trauma. To me, it's identity, or who do I identify with? And so do I identify with somebody who was going to let the past dictate who I am? Or do I identify with somebody who's going to lead by example for my daughter? And so I put on the swim cap. I saw tons of people looking at me. Nobody else there is in a swim cap, but I have my earplugs and I'm going in the water and I could see people staring at me, and it brought up a lot in me. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter. I want my daughter to see who I am, see that I'm willing to do things for her and to be with her. And so that's how I choose to show up, is who do I identify with? And for me, I identify to be a present father who's always loving, fully supportive, and willing to do what it takes in order for her to live the best life that she can.
That's extremely powerful. I mean, that's desensitization therapy in vivo, which means in person, right? That's actually, it's exposure therapy and desensitization, because exposure is what we do and desensitization is the effect. And so most people don't know why you're wearing that, right? And we have to. That's a lesson to us to be curious, not assume things. There's maybe a valid reason someone's doing something, wearing a swim cap with earplugs. It's not because you care about your new do. It's because you don't want to deal with inner ear pain for 3 seconds of pool time.
I could still see the lady across the pool just, and maybe she wasn't staring. That's also part of my internal narrative, right? She's looking at
Exactly.
me. She thinks that I'm dumb. I look stupid. All these things where we limit ourselves, where in reality, to me, I had to shift my focus, the sacred shift, and be like, hey, and then my daughter even said, Daddy, I want you to take your swim cap off. I like your hair better. So it's like, all right, I'll take it off. But I did it. So
Yeah. It's like, well, sweetie, I like my hair better too, but ear pain is no joke.
yeah,
Seriously.
no doubt. So
No,
it was quite an experience, and I struggle with that a lot with the hearing. And then to go back to things when we were younger, now I run a media agency, and I started, one of the first things that got me started was working with plastic surgeons. And so the thing that I feared the most growing up, I had white lab coat syndrome, because every time I would go in there, they'd mess with my ears and clean them out, and it did not feel well. Even now I
no.
go in 3 times a year where they have to like clean my ears, and it's not a good experience. But I
Mm-mm.
had this white lab coat syndrome where I feared every physician or any doctor that ever walked in the room. When I would see them, I would immediately get tense. So for me to ultimately later on in life work with the physicians, I think is a 180. And I think it's also like The Secret, or however you want to put it. When you say, I don't want to do something, and you stress that don't, you're still going to potentially, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. Well, just by putting that energy, that time, that focus, you're bringing it closer into your hemisphere with the opportunity for it to actually happen.
I mean, bringing up medical trauma is not something I expected on the bingo card for our talk, but I'm so happy to hear it, because I think listeners need to know doctors and medical experiences come in all different shapes and sizes. And some doctors have the bedside manner of a mortician, and others have the bedside manner of Patch Adams, which I hope younger listeners will get. It's a Robin Williams role for
Yeah,
anybody under 30.
great film.
Yeah, and so it's about recognizing people are human, and we have to interact with the medical world, and you can go to a therapist who provides a good bedside manner and helps you get through those experiences, but being mindful, like with kids' experience with doctors, and if your child or you or someone who had bad experiences, it's going to take some effort to make some good ones, like for your checkup to be, something that's uneventful potentially and doesn't lead to some kind of big process. Like, it helps to have those positive experiences, or to just talk to people, to doctors and medical people, and who are well intentioned, to reprogram your interpretation. But that was a great story. I mean, that idea of naming the inner critic is so popular, but it's still not, I don't think, popular enough. We have to recognize that when we keep listening to the programming, and sometimes it's a parent that we've internalized, sometimes it's not. Maybe it's a teacher who used to hit you in the knuckles with a ruler. calling that out, because something you said minutes ago about with your men's group, exploring the parts of yourself, the different elements. I think it was with all the different F's you listed, like friends, focus. I think we've become very flat in how we represent ourselves, potentially post COVID. Like we're on a screen right now, we're 2D. I don't know if you've noticed that as well, that people really can pivot into like audience capture or the role of what they think is going to serve best and kind of be flattened.
Yeah. I think there's a one note, there's a lot of that. And that's what a lot of the work that we do with connection engineering and some of the work that I do with, with my company and organizations. And so you said something as well. You talked about curiosity in the group that I'm in with Pat
Yes.
Croce. And Ted Lasso is a great example. We all love the show, replacing judgment with curiosity and making sure that we're curious so that we're not judgmental, but it's also rewriting that narrative. But when you're in a position where there's trauma or there's things that are going around that are tough, it's like, okay, let's bring it back. Let's pull out a piece of paper. Let's go back to the old school. And that's one of the things that I think we get caught in this technological world and the phones and chat GPT and AI. Well, you can have those things. I say, let it pour gas on. For me, gas is generosity, accountability, and spirituality. Let's put that on there so that we can, move forward. But if you write down simply what the facts are, and then what are you assuming or what are you thinking is actually the case? And if not, you can ask somebody or tell them or have an honest conversation around what are those things that we think they are. But that's where in today's world, somebody doesn't text me back, we feel as if we're being ghosted. But for me, I like to call people. My wife doesn't even want to talk to me anymore because I'll call her and she's like, just text me, just text me. Like people just don't want to be spoken to. And when you only have one method of communication where it's written text and you can't hear their voice, you can't see their face, you can't experience their energy, there's a lot that's lost in that exchange. And that's why we created this card deck, the Gents Journey deck. And that's some of the work that I do is to tap deeper into these stories, because then you're functioning on a 4D level where you have emotions, you have feelings, you have connections, you're looking somebody in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
We have an activity that I took from when I was an actor, and it is really powerful. You sit down in front of another person. We used to do this in movement class, and you talk a lot about trauma and PTSD. There's the book, The Body Keeps the Score, where we
Yep.
keep a lot of that stuff in our body.
Yes.
So we would do a lot of rolling around and things to kind of get loose so that we could access our emotions on a deeper level. But then we would sit down in a chair right across from another person, and we would only say one word. We would say you, and we would go back and forth and just say you. And 9 times out of 10, you would probably break down and cry or reach some sort of emotional, you said trigger before. I don't know what the term is, but some sort of emotional blockage or something that's been sitting in you where it would be a release. But just sitting in front of somebody and staring them in the eye and being willing to say you, or hold the door for a stranger and look at them and say, have a nice day. I go out of my way to do that. And I try to teach my children to do that every day as well, especially if we have a name tag on if you go to any store and they have a name tag, ask them about their name. They want to talk about it. There's nothing else that people love to hear more than their name. Give me the history of your name. How did you get, is there any, family heritage behind that? And then you have a conversation. They feel seen. You feel better because you've had an exchange. You feel fulfilled. You go on your merry way.
That's beautiful. You talked about being 4D, and I can't help but think like fourth dimension time. Like that's so relevant to grief because your brain moves around in time with grief. Like, oh, I remember them being alive. Oh, nope, they're not. Here's this thing I'm taking. Oh, here's this thing I'm leaving. I can't get into the grief right now. And mindfulness, being able to access the present. I think so many men, to go back to your point earlier, like are so stuck in either past or future and not tethered to the present. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that with video games and adult content. Like there's constantly something to look at that gets you out of your own stillness.
It's a distraction. It's an attachment because you don't want to sit with those difficult emotions. And so that's one of the things that we have nowadays with the next generation is my daughter's always saying she's bored. And so when we grew up, we dealt with boredom, but now there's distractions. There's other things. There's push notifications, you name it, that can take that distraction or that boredom away, but it doesn't take away the emotions and the feelings that live within you. And so that's amazing. It's amazing to see my daughter today. We said no TV. We put and then she's like, "Can I listen to music?" I said, "Sure, you can listen to music." I get it. That's still a little bit of an influence. But then she sat down at the kitchen table and she drew for an hour and a half, and she was extremely creative. She brought pictures, and she felt proud about her work and she explored a creative side of her brain. I think there's a couple of things that we as men need to know. Creativity is not limited, it's endless. Love is not limited, it's endless. There's abundance that's not limited, it's endless. And too often we feel that the way that we were built from a patriarchal society, that if we get to the top, we have to stay at the top. But for me, it's like we want to bring, at least where I'm coming from, or our men's group, we want to bring everybody up with us so that we all rise together.
Yes, you beat me to it in the best way. The understanding that creativity stems from doing something in boredom and stretching yourself to do something that maybe isn't that easy. It's not as easy as pushing a button. So,
Yeah.
I mean, video games can be art. You can do a lot. There's the ones that are very open-ended and take skill. I mean, there's so much there. I understand that as someone who likes games, but when it comes to creating your own stuff, if there's endless distractions that are kind of low quality, like processed food, you're just going to keep craving that and not go for that enrichment, the nourishment of authentic relationships instead of just texting, or authentic creativity instead of just writing a few lines on something, turning yourself into a trading card on a social media or dating app. I mean, I think people are starting to get wise to that now more and more, but
Yeah.
it's still a message that needs to be said.
So,
I love Go ahead, please. No, you.
yeah. So one thing that to add on to that is when I was an actor and I had the ability to see, all my friends went and did their normal jobs, and I said, forget it. I'm going to go and pursue this thing because I know that this is something I love. My first audition, I failed miserably. I couldn't remember any of the lines. I tried it in college and I ran out of the room. So for me, it was like a sense of resilience and grit. I love acronyms. For me, it's grit. It's like gratitude, resilience, integrity, and trust in yourself. But when I
Mouthful.
was an actor, I think one thing that we don't explore, like you said, from a boredom perspective, is taking out a pen and putting it to pad. And if it's a journal, if it's writing, one thing that I wrote ended up coming back around when my mom passed. I would love to share it with you. I call it fries at the bottom of the bag.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to share a quick little vignette. But when I would have these moments as an artist, we're going deeper into our feelings and our emotions and doing a lot of these things. Some people don't do that today because they're busy and they have things. But that's where meditation or giving yourself some time before your children get up. There's the 5 a.m. club from Robin Sharma, I think is a book where you get up and you get time for yourself. But I wrote this thing down and it ended up coming back when my mom passed away. And it's sort of like become the tenet of a lot of the work that I do. It's called fries at the bottom of the bag. And for me, to me, it was funny how some people would really take the simple things in life for granted. In
Yes.
particular, I used to look forward to having my mom pick me up and take me to McDonald's and buy me a value meal. And it's always a joy that I would get in giving her the empty bag of food and the pleasure that it gave her to eat the leftover fries at the bottom of the bag that I love the most. And it was
Mm.
those 15 minutes in the car with my mom, my hero, my mentor, and most of all, my best friend that I truly miss the most when thinking back to my childhood. And you never really think about it much at the time, but those fries at the bottom of the bag, which we overlook so much, those are the special moments and the times that we overlook only to look back on savor. So savor the moments that we've had, the love that you share, and remember that the love that we have never ends. And so that's one thing for me that I read at her funeral. We had 2 services. It was the hardest thing in the world to read. Obviously, I can read it now because the band-aid's ripped off and I've gone through it. But when I showed up at her house to clean out her estate, we're
Mhm.
digging through all these bags. I'm looking, I see this little plastic bag over here and I pick up this plastic bag and I'm shaking it around. There's a bunch of crap at the bottom. And I see and I look really quickly, see this at the bottom of the bag. It's a
Hey.
McDonald's. It's a little McDonald's telephone Happy Meal toy. And so I literally found the McDonald's fries at the bottom of the bag when I was cleaning out my mom's estate. And I was like,
Wow.
dang, that's
Symbol
some
of
crazy stuff. And so when we allow ourselves to be bored and to create, we allow our highest versions of ourselves. We connect to the higher power, our soul, and all these things. And sometimes we put these things on the shelves, but eventually they'll come back around.
Yes. Well put. Yes, we can't shelve our potential. We have to tap into that. And you can start today. When you were mentioning the 5 a.m. club, thinking of morning pages from Julia Cameron and The Artist's
Dude, the
Way.
best. Yes. I love her exercises. I did them all when we were an actor. And so the morning pages, the stream of consciousness, I still try to do them. I don't do them as much as I should, but I mean, they're great just to get that stuff out of your head.
Yeah. It's fun. I haven't mentioned this. I work with a local comedy troupe in Atlanta that does some movie riffing over live movies. We get permission, of course, from the studios like Mystery Science Theater 3000. If you ever watched
Yeah.
that show.
I used to watch it in Austin, Texas at the Alamo Draft House. They would like come there and do it live.
Okay, so you've got some real chops. You've got bragging rights there. So
Yeah.
being a therapist and thinking in a linear way, like, so I used to draw a lot and I like sketching and drawing. I can still do it. It's a different skill set when you get into diagnostics and therapy and linear treatment and treatment planning and very kind of left brain thinking. And so getting back in touch with double entendres, which don't just have to be dirty, puns, humor, lateral thinking has been so enjoyable for me. And I mean, it's such a great way, and it jogs creative ideas and things you can use in therapy
I
and
love
different
that.
ways of thinking. Yeah. I think more people who are left brain should get into it. I mean, because I kind of go between both worlds. But hearing you talk about bringing creativity out, I'm thinking, yeah, that's especially for men, that's very curative. I mean, look at the Odyssey's about to come out from Homer. Talk about an original journaler.
Yeah. That's going
Men
to be
have to
insane.
realize creative. Go ahead.
That's going to be insane. So I would
Yeah.
like, or look at Superman. My daughter is watching a show called Brainchild. I try and get her to watch educational. Like, where do you think Superman came from? They're like, you need to go back to the Greek gods. Look at Poseidon, who's going underneath, or look at, all the superheroes. It's all been done before. History repeats itself. The highest form of flattery is art imitating itself. But when we dig deeper and do our own spin on it and make it personal to ourselves, even in the age of AI, you could use it to, as a force multiplier. But for you really going in deeper and understanding those key moments. And for
Yeah.
me, like as a kid, I would go in my dad's basement and we would watch Saturday Night Live when I would stay at his house and we would eat Rocky Road. So when I see Rocky Road, boom, that explodes into my brain and it has such a close connection to me. So writing Rocky Road in a line of text or using it in a scene or talking about it in a poem has volumes of meaning. A lot of the subtext, especially with you and your therapy work, there's so much subtext, and that's really where the true value lies of like what's happening underneath it all.
Yes. Subtext is key. Nuance, connections, classical conditioning. When you hear that bell, do you salivate? Go back to Psych 101. Amazing. I mean, I really want to pick your brain on some lessons or experiences you've had in the entertainment business that you can look
Yeah,
and say, wow,
please
I
do.
learned something.
Please do.
Yeah. If you have any that stand out that taught you kind of the nature of the business. I mean, I want to, of course, limit it to what you're comfortable saying on air. So within that, like if you learned some confidence lessons from people that we know in the industry, or they paid it forward and treated you well in some way that contributed to your success.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that come to mind. So you talked initially about improv. So I've done improv. I did
Yeah.
UCB. I did IO West. I did all of these things. So first and foremost, I think that's the foundation of anything. Del Close is like the pioneer of that. There's a book out. I recently just started taking improv classes again. But for me to put yourself in a position where you can be creative in a moment and you don't need to think about it, because when we
Mm,
get into our head, that's where we get stuck to all the BS and all the mess. So for me, starting from a place of improvisation, I think is crucial. And that's where you see Will Ferrell, all these SNLers, they all started at Groundlings or, Second City. So
mm.
it took me a while to get there. Then I went away from it. Like I did an improv class with Rick Glassman. He's pretty well known. Or
Yeah, he is.
yeah. So he was calling himself the Rick, and he was like, "Hey man, we should hang out." And then I never really ended up hanging out with him. But then I just watched him sort of navigate. But it all came from him putting himself up on stage, facing fears, and then doing improv. And then I mentioned Paul Rubens. So I met Paul Rubens, and I said, "Hey man, if you were to start all over again in your career, what would you suggest?" And he said, I mean, I hate to say it, but I would suggest to go to AA. And the reason he said that, I'll break it down a little bit further, is now I don't drink anymore. I used to drink a lot and party and everything but now I'm focused on my well-being, being conscious, realizing a lot of these crazy things that happened in my life. I probably put myself in a compromising position because I wasn't focused and in the right state of mind.
Hmm.
So the 12 steps in AA not only give you a solid foundation, but the people that you would be able to potentially meet in that, I'm not saying that that's what you should do, but finding other individuals that can mentor you, I think is key. So I've had some individuals, it was the Jimenez family when I went there, Sharon Jimenez and Bob Jimenez. Bob was the first Latina reporter for NBC. Sharon Jimenez, she used to be a campaign manager for Dennis Kucinich. So I got into hosting. They sort of became my parents because I was in California and everybody else was on the East Coast. So they taught me a lot about simply showing up and standing behind things that you believe in and really being your true authentic self. Because too often, like we talked about before, you're trying to get the role and you're trying to fit what they want. But when you finally come to a point where it doesn't matter what they want, you're willing to walk away and you truly honor yourself for who you are, that's when you really start to gain success and really become valued for who you are. And that's where having that improv mindset as well. I've noticed every audition that I improv or do something different or just try and have fun with it and play with it, I usually get those. And then the ones where I feel like I'm trying to craft it and position it for how they want it, I'm just another person. And then along the lines of like Paul Rubens, one of the things that really helped me is I created my own show. It was called Renegade Reporting, where it started in New York City. I wish I would have kept the name and kept doing it. I started to do other things, but I was just interviewing people in the streets because it was fun. And I wanted to interview them like, what was the craziest thing you've seen? So I brought it out to California and I started interviewing people. And that's how I met Bob and Sharon Jimenez. And they're like, wow, you're really good at this. I met Brandon Boyd from Incubus, who was the lead singer. So they were doing a big it was for the Susan G. Komen Foundation, and they wanted an interview to put on the big screen because he was involved with some breast cancer and things like that. And so they said, hey, do you want to interview him? Really intimidated, but I had the opportunity to go and interview him. And I think if you find your people that truly honor you for who you are, I think that's essential. And then you need a vehicle for you to really truly express yourself. And like you said, it could be drawing. For me, it was reporting because I wasn't in an audition room trying to figure out. I was just doing improv and like making things up and having a good time. So I think you need to have a vehicle that truly contributes to your creativity and who you are and deepens your sense of who your identity, to go back to what we were talking about before. And then also having something that can allow you to be financially stable, which I did not have. So I was, living check to check. I had maybe $300 in my bank account at the time. So that was really challenging. And then when I moved and started my agency, I did a podcast and it ultimately got developed into a TV show. We're developing it right now with Colin Jost. But I think that was because I didn't need it. I wasn't desperate. I had everything else that I essentially was working on. And so I continued to build that out. And that's what set me up for success there.
So many great points to hook into, but I think one thing that comes to mind for me that gets relevant to everyone is don't let outlets, don't let apps, don't let other actors who have a role in shaping you tell you who you are. Because I think in America, we have this view now that and I think there's toxic spirituality. I'll explain that. There's that phrase, you're a human being, not a human doing. And I think that's rooted in good, but I think what that can do is that can set us off course and say, well, whatever we do, that's just what we're doing, but our being is different. What you practice, you become. And so if you engage in behavior or you allow yourself to be captured by distractions and apps that anonymize you and pit you against other people, and even if you're swiping on people and judging them continually, that really changes who you are. We build ourselves through habit. I think that's a masculine view. And they're like, femininity and masculinity come together in a great way. That's really a way to see things. Jung was pretty right about that. But separating doing from being is very toxic because, as you just said, like when you got into your life's purpose and who you wanted to be, you started doing things and then things happened around you. And it's like this positive vortex where the more you built and were intentional about who you wanted to be. You talked about listing earlier. When you were intentional about that, things started happening and you stepped into who you wanted to become inside through behavior.
Yeah. And I think we talk about it with my mentor. When you're being, I don't know, how do you be? I mean, it's like you get in your head.
What does that mean?
So that's where we're always saying you need to be actively doing something. And when you're doing something, whether it's meditating, you're listening. I studied at Bill Esper Studios, and it's kind of like improv where you literally repeat back what the person is saying until something else comes up that's more prominent. So it'd be like, what did you say? What did I say? What did you say? Oh, you didn't like that? I didn't like that. You didn't like that? I didn't like that. I got your point. You got my point? And so it's like this whole thing. You're not being, you're doing something, you're listening, you're being present, you're being mindful. And so Pat also says, You know, your thoughts are not you. Let them flow through. Man, there's one other piece that I'm missing it. What did he say? But it's like when you can control the weather, you can control your thoughts. They're going to come in. And so that's where, you know, you're actively, they're coming in, you recognize them, say, okay, I got you, whether it's the voice in the head or you acknowledge it, they want to be seen, and then you can move on in your way. But that's where that doing comes in. And I can't agree more.
Love it. You're right. We have to develop a different relationship to our mind. And being mindful means becoming the forecaster for the weather in our mind, becoming acquainted with it, putting out our Doppler. So I think that's an underrated thing because it's work, it's practice. The biggest therapeutic shifts that happen outside something like EMDR or brain spotting, which is that experiential in the session therapy, the biggest things apart from that are the habits that people accumulate. And habits is kind of a bad word. Discipline is a super bad word. It's popular among the self-improvement bros, which shout out to them. That's it. I'm glad
Yeah.
they're putting it out there. But, discipline was so ruined for a lot of millennials, I think, because they associate it with kind of boomer, rub dirt in it and you'll be fine. But really, there's a lot to be gained. When you don't feel like doing something, you just keep doing it. It becomes easier to do. Every shocker to people out there, therapists don't always feel like coming into work. But are we going to cancel and be unprofessional? I mean, I hope not. I wouldn't. If I'm sick, yeah, I don't want to spread that. But I think what we can look at examples of discipline in our lives and say, oh, well, okay, if I'm doing this for work where I have to, I should probably do it for the things I want to do as well.
Yeah. My agency, our slogan is to do good, give back, and make an impact. So we want to do good. So when you're doing things that are good, and we know genuinely what is right. And then
Mm,
essentially what I do for leadership is like, I want you to do good.
yes.
And but I also say, so I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I say be great. So, but being great is still actionable. I use great as an actionable term for
Yes.
grateful, reflective, empathetic, accountable, and transformational. And that's where, you don't have to go to work. You get to go to work. And these little subtle shifts that we can implement on a regular basis. This didn't happen to me. This happened for me. And this goes back to what we were talking about initially about being a teacher. So
It
everything in
does.
life is coming through us. And so what other choice do we have but to understand that we're going to fail forward and use this as fuel to continue to move forward and either share our story, get better, or maybe success, the goalpost will shift and you go a different direction, which is okay too. So, I mean, that's where I think you can do good, but also you want to focus on being great, the highest version of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you get into that reconnect, rebuild, and reclaim
Yeah.
your model for overcoming grief. Had to shout it out at some point. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So reconnect, really connecting to what matters most. And I think as a business or as a person, what is your calling? What is your purpose? What is your meaning for being in this world? And it's going to shift, right? Purpose changes. But then once you're connected, then you have the sensibility and the confidence to rebuild. And that's what I did with the men's group. That's what your listeners can do is to rebuild these friendships. And oftentimes there may be, what do they call them? Vampires or crazy makers in the artist way, or people that are taking your energy or not necessarily beneficial. 9 times out of 10, sometimes they're family members. And so understanding those boundaries, setting those boundaries, rebuilding the sense of self-worth, rebuilding your community, rebuilding what it is that you need to move forward. And then lastly, I say reclaim. You want to reclaim your sense of self. You want to reclaim your power. You want to reclaim who you are because you are worthy. Your story matters. To the world, you might be one person, but to one person, you might be the world. And your story that you share, that you could tell that one individual that was living in a similar situation, which is super specific and connected to you, I'm sure it's going to resonate with somebody else because they've been in the same scenario.
very well said. Getting out there and resonating with others and not being atomized and fragmented off is crucial and harder than ever now. I'm going to go back. I'm going to clip this when you said people just don't want to talk. They don't want to be have to listen or whatever. Like with phone calls, like we gotta and not just text me. I get it. I think sometimes just text me is good for info exchange, and I think have a conversation with me has to be something like we need to do that at least weekly. And I'm sure
It's
you,
hard. People don't
yeah,
have the wherewithal. They don't have the
yeah.
confidence. So what I usually will try and do is there are people in my life that I know that I'm going to text them. And last night, I'm as guilty as others. I texted somebody and I should have called them or sent a voice note. But for me, I try and do at least a voice note just so they can hear my context of my voice and I'm
I like
talking to
those.
them. And then I also know if they've read it because it goes away versus a text message you don't know. But then you're like, okay, I did my piece. There's only so much you can do. But if people don't want to change, they're not going to change. But I do think at the end of the day, it's up to us to hold accountability and to reach out and to connect, because we might think that these people are mean, that, there's narratives that we build up or stories that we're envisioning, or they don't want to talk to me. But there's a guy in the gym, big, huge dude. For like 6 months, I didn't want to talk to him. And he is the biggest guy I've ever seen lifting weights, just kind of doing his own thing. I started to talk to him. He's a former NFL player and he's the nicest guy in the world. But it just took me reaching out and saying, hey, I'm Steve. Nice to meet you. I just kind of moved here. But if he doesn't say hello, so be it. At least you gave it an effort on it and you reached out. People are going to say no. Try anyway.
Yeah. Be rejection proof. There's another book out there. I haven't read that one, so I can't vouch for it. But okay, I have to ask you here, what it's like working with the Impractical Jokers as someone who's familiar with their work.
Sure. Yeah. So this is another thing. I think if you put yourself in a good place and you come from a decent perspective in life, and you're coming from the heart and wanting to help people. So I met them in New York City a while ago. They were doing sketches and videos. I'm trying to remember how I first met them, and I
The
can't even remember.
Tenderloins.
The
It's
Tenderloins.
their
Yeah, that's what they
name.
were called. They were doing videos and sketch videos. I think I saw a Craigslist post, but for me, I was a grinder and I still am. That's what everybody says. They're like, dude, you just get after it. And so I donated time, shot some videos. I ended up being in some of their videos. And then James Murray, I got to know him pretty well. He was a close friend of mine. And then they continued to make videos. They shot a couple sizzle reels, and they had shows that kind of went on and then they didn't. But then eventually their show, The Impractical Jokers, hit. And I was like, oh man, this is really great. I actually was a cameraman on one of their episodes. I came to New York and I was like hiding in a tree and filming at one point. And it couldn't happen to a greater group of guys. They're from Staten Island and they have just always been so kind, endearing, and friendly. And even to this day, I got to give a shout out to James. Like, he'll send me a text message every year on my birthday, just like Pee Wee Herman did. And it's like, it just speaks volumes of the people that come from a good place. They have a huge heart. And if it comes back to connection, they remember you, or if you connect with them, they know how you've worked with them. And Sal came into town not too long ago. I reached out to him.
Salvador. Wait,
Yeah,
he came to Kentucky?
he came to Kentucky, and I was like, hey, you're coming to Kentucky? He's like, yeah, come on back. Gave me and my wife backstage tickets. And then I had 2 extra tickets. And I was like, dude, who am I going to give these things to? Because I wanted to like, it was cool. I know him, but I was like, how can I spread the love and help somebody else? And there was a little girl. She was like, I don't know, 12, with her mom. I'm like, hey, you guys want to go meet Sal backstage? So I gave them the 2 tickets, and come to find out, this little girl who was 12 years old or 13 had bought these tickets for her mom because her mom grew up and she was the biggest fan in the world. And so she went out of her way as a nice little friendly, loving daughter, and bought her mom these tickets. So then they got to go backstage and meet Sal as well. And it just felt so good for me to be able to spread the love and allow them to experience that. It was just great. And these guys, I mean, props to them. They're doing amazing things. I remember them being at my 35th birthday party before I left New York City. They're nothing but the salt of the earth.
That's amazing, dude. Please let me know next time they're in town for a show.
Yeah.
Go
Let
see.
me know.
I've heard him on other podcasts, and he's really taken off with stand up. So
yeah, his stand up was something else. We were in this theater where it was the Singletary Center in that Rupp Arena, University of Kentucky. And there's probably about 200 rows of seats. And so you got to walk. And so we were in the middle of the row. First thing he comes out, he's like, look at this. Sal's like, look at this place. There's no aisles. He's like, I would have so much anxiety if I would be sitting in the middle of the row. Like, I'm going to have to get up and get everybody to stand up. Like, all these little subtle nuances of like what we talked about earlier, social connection, worrying about other people, and anxiety. And he just, for him being willing to call it out, then we could all laugh at it, because my wife was sitting there having to go pee in the middle of the row and having to make 65 people get up and go to the bathroom.
excuse me.
Yeah, excuse me. Standing up in front of everybody, it was so funny. He's brilliant, man.
Yeah, and he talks about his phobia. He's a germ freak, and so his punishments on the show when he doesn't prank enough people, for listeners who've never seen the show, well, you should watch it. It's great comedic relief. But though, I remember one of the punishments was he was in an elevator and they had someone come in and fake cough, and act really sick. And he's like, you should cover your mouth when you cough. Okay. And he was like really peeved. And it was very funny to watch as a therapist. It's like, he didn't sign up for that exposure therapy.
Yeah, and then he also has a tattoo of Jaden Smith on his leg, and then he went and had to show it to Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, and then he has a bigger one on his leg as well. And I was like, man, I should have asked him to see his tattoo.
Yeah. Tattoo therapy. That one, usually you want something. I think, was that a punishment? That was a punishment you had to get that,
That was
right?
a punishment. He had to get that tattoo on there. But yeah, I think for people, it's another way to express yourself. And for me, when I got my tattoo, it just felt, I don't know, it felt different. I was like, oh, I got a tattoo now. It felt like a little bit different. And then you want to get another one. I haven't gotten another one, but I'm trying to
That's
figure
what Pete
out.
Davidson did. Then he
Yeah.
decided, no, I
So
changed
remove
my
them
mind.
all.
Yeah. That's
Staten
gotta hurt.
Island. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Staten Island. And Colin Jost is attached to be the lead in our podcast that's being developed in a TV show. So he's a Staten Islander too. Those Staten Island guys are a good crew.
They
Wu-Tang
are.
Clan.
There you go. Again, they're very good work ethic. So
yeah.
And this has flown by. Name drop the improv book that you were talking about, because I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's by Del Close. Hold on, I forget the name of it. He's the OG of improv. Let me see his name of his book here.
Truth and Comedy is one of them.
Yeah, that's it. Truth and Comedy. That's the book. Yeah. So that's the book that we all had to read when we first started. They make you read it like at UCB, which I think it was like Matt Walsh and Amy Poehler and all those. When I first started UCB in what was it, 2005 in New York City, like they were all getting up on stage. They had this thing called Ass Cats. So on Sunday nights, it'd be like Rob Riggle and Amy Poehler and all these comedic geniuses would get up on stage and be able to watch them work. And then we got to see, Donald Glover and a lot of his crew.
Whoa.
The guy who does Sonic the Hedgehog was in his group as well. What's that guy's name?
The voice of Sonic now from the
what's that guy's name?
He also did the voice in Lilo and Stitch of Pleakley.
Voice of Sonic. What's his name?
Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, Ben Schwartz. It was Donald Glover. They're all in a group, getting to see them work. So, like, if you can go out and see improv, there's nothing greater than that, because it's just makes you laugh. And there's a guy that I'm in that group with, Pat Croce. His name is Craig Shoemaker. He's a brilliant man. He goes by the Love Master. He's a former comedian, but he has a whole program on laughter and the importance of laughter in your overall mental health and well-being. And he teaches people this 9-step program about laughter and how important. He has these things like he ties in the meditation side of things, but where, even if you just start laughing, you eventually could make yourself start to laugh, or putting a smile on your face. It's going to increase your endorphin levels. So these are just little hacks that you can implement.
Dude, love it. Glad we got into the healing power of comedy. It's kind of my niche now. I love this. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I'll have to check out The Love Master, 1997
Check out The Love Master. If you want to connect with them, I'll connect you with them. And I have a concept. You mentioned puns. I have a concept that I've been trying to get off trying to set it up. And you're a drawer. And I have this book that I've been wanting. I've been trying to find somebody to draw the pictures. So maybe we'll talk offline about it and see if it's something you're interested in.
There you go.
Puns. It's a book. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to share anything that you would want to get out about upcoming projects. I know you've got your deck of conversation cards, which is awesome. Anything ongoing and coming up where people can find you, or where you would want to check out about you.
Yeah, thanks, man. If you're interested in joining we have a Substack community. It's called Gents Journey. So gentsjourney.co. You can go there and sign up for that. We have, podcasts, newsletters, with meetings where we're just trying to empower more individuals. And for me, looking to work with any business leaders or anybody who's looking to expand who they are, I have this thing called the TEDx Factor Framework, where we look to try and get you on a TEDx stage. I share all the things that I've learned and how to really fine tune your speech to make an impact. And so you can take your story and really impact lives everywhere by also putting yourself on a stage so that you can help others heal from your experiences. But you can go to Stephen Seidel, that's STEPHEN, Seidel, SEIDEL.com, or my name's Stephen Seidel on all social media. And then if you're wanting to elevate yourself, your brand, and there's a tool that I have. It's at my company. It's called the Seidel Agency. So THE Seidel, SEIDEL agency.com/media. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sites that are looking for experts. So whether or not you're a comedian, you're a therapist, you're a businessman, you're a small business owner, everyone's looking for experts so that they can share your opinion. And it's a great way for you to fine tune a little bit more about who you are to work through some of the things you're at. But there's a multitude of sites where you can get inboxes in your emails in your inboxes and just respond to them and get publicity to share your story.
Love that. All right, man. Thank you so much. It's been a
Yeah, thanks,
pleasure.
Jeremy. I appreciate it.